Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's New Year's Eve, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
I can't believe it. We're doing it in real time. This is Stan from Gainesville, and tonight, we're actually celebrating New Year's Eve with all of our Light Talk listeners.
And this is Ellen coming to you from the tropical island of St. Bart's, where we are celebrating New Year's Eve on the beach.
Woo! And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shores neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
And sister.
That's right, Ellen. Well, welcome everyone to episode 405 and our special New Year's Eve show. And we are actually recording this New Year's Eve. And as soon as we finish recording it, I'm going to take out all the curse words that Stan has muttered throughout the show. And then I'm going to publish it. So you guys are going to get this hopefully before.
What the heck?
See, right there, beep. So you'll get it tonight, hopefully, if not early in the morning. But yeah, so tonight is New Year's Eve. And we said, why not celebrate it with our listeners? Right? Awesome.
Yeah, like they got nothing else to do but listen to us.
Well,
New
hopefully
Year's
you're
Eve.
not
Come
out
on.
partying. You know, I got tickets to.
I've got tickets to do
Lori
nothing.
gave
David
me
gave
those
them to me.
tickets, and so I published them out. So a lot of people are sharing front row seats to doing nothing. So that's really, really exciting for all of us. So anyway, we've got a special show today because we're going to do a lot of different weird things.
Unlike usually.
We're going to talk about what's happening, what has happened in Light Talk on the past 52 weeks, and a lot's been going on. We're going to talk about a little bit about LDI because, you know, we hadn't even talked about our show there at LDI. It was actually a lot of fun, right? It's
still lingering
in our blood systems, at least. And we're going to talk about some of our guests that we had this year, which was incredible, the number of guests. I think we had like 27 or 28 guests this year. We're going to talk about new tech that we've seen this year and tech that we hope to see next year. We're going to talk about things that we had hoped for that would appear in the lighting scene in 2024 and didn't. And we're going to talk about things that hope to see in 2025. And we'll probably be wrong about all that as well. But what the hell, right? Oh, and we have a special sponsor today. There's a new Broadway show coming that's going to be opening on January 20th. So that's going to be really exciting. We're wondering if any of our friends are going to be involved. We doubt it because all our friends are union, and I don't think they're doing any union people on this particular production. But that being said, let's get started.
All right. So who knows what's going to happen? I know I've got my bottle here for every hard edit David does. I'm taking a shot. So sit back, take a long swig off your alcoholic beverage of choice. And thank you for joining the Lumen family and celebrating this historic night into the unknown.
Well, first we're going to thank all the great guests who joined us on our show this year, including Michael Clark, John Froelich, Chris Maravich, Justin Partier, Christina Watanabe, Manny Treason, Michael Stiller, Rick Fisher, Dennis Size, Jane Cox, Brandon Sterling Baker, Brian McDevitt and Nick Solom, John Gresh, Jeff Ravitz, David Bengali, Ann Militello, Bob Boniol, Bob Barnhart, Josh White, the father and daughter duo of John and Haley Featherstone, Jackie Thomason, Michael Chybowski, Andrew Sullivan, and Brian Hartley. Woo, what a list.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of people. I mean, did we work at all this year? Or did we just have guests on the whole show the whole time?
That's what happens when you retire. You have all kinds of time on your hands.
Let other people do the work.
Let
other people do the heavy lifting. Plus, they're going down in posterity.
We're going down, but not in posterity.
That's what they're looking for.
More like infamy. That's what we're going down as. Seriously, we do want to thank all these wonderful people for sharing and donating their time to the cause of educating our listeners. And, you know, if you know anyone who wants to be on the show, or if you want to be on the show, contact us. I know we have some exciting people coming up for 2025, but we're not totally booked. So please, if you want to be on the show, just contact any one of us and we can talk about arrangements for that. So Stan, why don't you go ahead and introduce our segment, our first big segment of the day.
Yes. So I'm going to say that we're going to make some We're going to talk about some predictions and some of our disappointments from last year. So, what happened with that AI voice controlled?
All right. This has been on my list for a long time, and no one's listening to me. I mean,
oh yeah, they are.
They're not.
They're in Area 51. They're listening.
That's my
things happen. Things in corporate world. Things happen quietly.
Yeah.
Things are being done. Yeah. They don't make a lot of noise, and then when the time is right, the launch will happen.
Right. Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
I just don't understand why no one's really doing this. Anyway, and also
clearly it's not on the nice list. It's on the
naughty list because the programmer is going to kill like the first lighting company that comes along to do it. That's the problem.
Doesn't matter. They have no control over that.
And I think for the past 7 years, I've been hoping for the Drone Focus Deluxe, which hasn't happened yet either. But we're getting closer to droning, right? I hear that they're testing a prototype out in New Jersey. They're all over the sky out there. So,
what just happened in Florida? Wasn't there a show down there where they stopped it when a few drones fell out of the sky? That was in the news last week.
I didn't catch that.
And injured someone. Someone was injured, I think.
Drones were dropping.
In Florida?
Drones are dropping.
Drones are dropping in Florida.
Drones are dropping.
Now, that's a good name for a musical.
I thought it was in
Drones
Florida.
are dropping.
Or drone droppings, whatever
It's
those
like
are.
those frozen iguana that drop off the palm trees.
I was going to say, you mentioned that the drone thing in New Jersey. It's just really a good example of contagion, about how easily we could all of a sudden get sucked into believing things and theories. And notice how it's just gone, right? Like all these people were super convinced. Even the government got involved and kept saying, look, what you're seeing is not what you think you're seeing. And people just can believe, just interesting how quickly that became like it's got to be real, and they just can't figure it out. And of course, none of it was.
Yeah, well, we don't know for sure.
Not
yet.
Sure.
It hasn't been proven one way or the other.
I think with those New Jersey drones, what you're really seeing were UFOs. I think there's like a planet somewhere where there's like little teeny tiny UFO people,
Planet
maybe
X,
a quarter-inch tall.
Yeah.
And here they come. Here they come in their little drone-like device.
They're picking people up to make dinner, to serve man.
Well,
it's the Twilight Zone episode.
Getting back to our serious discussion on what our disappointments were and new products and predictions, we were talking about Drone Focus Deluxe, and I saw something at LDI, a new product of a drone that is half light show, so it has LEDs and pyro. It has pyro rockets on it.
Right, that's the new thing.
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? But it was awesome. I was going to buy one for Stan to like launch on his Republican neighbors, but I didn't think that would go well in Gainesville.
Yeah, that could bring some retribution.
That's right, retribution, and we're going to have enough retribution, so we don't need any more from Stan. So anyway, that was my big disappointment. How about you all? Do you have any disappointments?
We have another one on the list here that you mentioned that I want to chime in on. You say Apple Vision Pro.
Well, that's not a disappointment, I don't think. I don't think that's a disappointment.
No, but I have to say something. I just read, so this is a little bit of news, and maybe you guys have heard about it, and I don't think this is fantasy. Apparently, Meta has teamed up with Ray-Ban, and Ray-Ban has a pair of glasses that's going to really kind of shoot this Apple Vision Pro out of the sky, because the Ray-Ban glasses are like regular glasses and can be prescription, and I don't know, and apparently puts whatever digital content you want on the lens for you on regular glasses, so there's no big, heavy, nothing you've got to...
That's been out for a while. Yeah.
No, it's not released yet.
No, it's not.
This is not...
But they're advertising it, and people were talking about it.
Yes, they've been advertising. Yeah, they're hyping it, but it's not released.
Weren't the original Google glasses like that? They were regular-sized glasses.
Well, I don't know. I saw it, and it looked like a legitimate thing, and I was like, and they were able to pack all the technology somehow into it. I'm like, how are they doing that? But okay.
So I don't get it though. Like, do you really want to walk around with like your email scrolling in front of your eyes while you're driving?
Really, I wouldn't.
No, I think it's only when you want it.
Oh.
It's like you tap it and it comes up.
That's right.
Like a porn movie on the
Yeah.
airplane.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, at one
Very
point
nice.
there was somebody that was putting it on windshield. It was like it embedded into your windshield. So
it's
like you
heads
could
up-
have
heads up
Google
display.
Maps.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there
Google
you go.
Maps and stuff right on the windshield.
Yeah, you don't need that. So, do you all know who Dave Barry is? Dave
Yeah,
Barry
sure.
is
He's a very
humorist.
funny writer.
He's very funny. Every year he does this thing about the year in review, and that came out yesterday, and it's hysterical because he goes January, February, March, he goes the whole thing year in review, and it's hysterical. And I'm going to quote him twice. I haven't going to quote him at the end of the show, but I'm going to quote him right now because he was talking about the Apple Vision Pro, and this is from Dave's article. Apple launches the much anticipated Vision Pro, a virtual reality headset costing more than your grandfather paid. Just ask him for his first car. But it's worth it because when you put it on, thanks to a revolutionary spatial computing system coupled with 12 cameras and 23 million pixel display, you look like an idiot. So there you go.
Is this a good thing, though? I mean, maybe disguising yourself as an idiot might be a good
Well, our
thing.
AI girlfriends and boyfriends a good thing, you know? I mean, it's like, it's a problem with technology.
He brings up a good point. That there's a new gigantic Tesla dealership 3 or 4 miles from my house, and there must be 50 trucks on that lot, starting at only 90,000. I mean, who can afford this? Who can afford this technology? Who can afford the talking light board? Who can afford the glasses that you can watch Sound of Music while you sit on the subway?
Don't all these things always start out very expensive and then come down to reality prices?
Well, I've noticed that cars haven't come down to reality prices. They're now the price of a small house.
Well, but it used to be like who could afford an iPhone, and now it's like who
and
doesn't
maybe
have one?
those same people can't afford that $1,700 iPhone. That's what's so bizarre about it.
Right, but there are cheaper ones.
There are cheaper ones. That is true. That is true.
I heard an interesting thing, speaking of Tesla, that the Tesla company plans on or already has a phone, and that they have a lot of, I guess, related to SpaceX, so that there's going to be a Tesla phone connected to some kind of SpaceX
Starlink
satellites only, and that, Starlink, and that's going to be like, if you have any other kind of phone, it's going to be really inferior to this.
Let me contradict that,
system.
because just today, news released from Tesla that without any upgrades to your Android or iPhone, you will be able to use, for its service charge, Tesla's Starlink international calling anywhere in the world from your
Cool.
existing phone. They just announced
That's
that today,
cool.
in fact.
But Apple already has that. Apple, the new
What's that?
iPhone can also can contact through satellite. You don't need any cell towers. Anybody you want in an emergency. So that's been going on for about a year now with the new iPhone system.
Yeah, but this is using
Yeah, I got
Starlink
it.
as
Yeah,
regular
but the whole
calling.
thing.
So now we can
System.
call Voyager
Well,
1.
Right. Maybe the Tesla phone isn't ready yet, and they're getting you used to the idea of using Starlink. And then when the Tesla phone comes out, it's like, okay, guys, you want to continue to
I
use
think
Starlink?
Boeing
Get this.
needs to call this
We'll see.
the spacecraft up there. Boy, they've had a bad year. Boeing, their stock's down
Right.
like 40% this year or something like that. And
time
it's
to
like
buy it.
not good. They just had another one crash yesterday. So and just wait till it.
Right. That's the only thing I hope they never allow people to do is talk loud on cell phones.
Oh, it's worse.
on an
There was
airplane.
an article I read the other day about people now are not even using earphones. They're actually using the speaker in their phone
Right.
and talking to people,
Right.
not caring about people around them.
Yeah, I
You know,
read
I
that
don't wanna
article.
I don't
I read
want to
that
hear
too.
that conversation, right? So one person said they went over to him and they said, "Oh, I'm gonna watch this movie with you since you've got it so loud. I'm gonna watch this." And then immediately they say, "Oh, maybe I'll get my headphones up."
Well, any flight I've been on, the flight attendants
Yeah,
have
well,
stopped people from doing that.
things are
This is
changing.
Starlink direct-to-cell technology.
Yeah, there you go.
Here's
All right, so let's move on.
think
Let's talk a little bit about any other high tech that you guys want to talk about that we wanted to see and didn't see, or things that we did see.
Well, I don't know. Steve and I were talking about the Vari
Yeah, we
Lite
talked
Hive
about that last
before.
week. Because No, that's cool. No, we could talk about it again. I was hoping Steve would have some more info because the info he gave us last week was a little bit shallow. We didn't know exactly what was going on with this thing, when it's coming out and how much it's going to cost. And
Well, it's still a prototype. I'm not sure they really know when it's going to be shipping.
I know Philips hasn't given me a call yet today to tell me the secret workings of the Hive yet. But I think it's going to be. I think we're now looking at disruptive technology. I think Ellen's right. Prototypes are what we're seeing. I think the idea is there. How's it going to be developed? Is it going to do what it says it's doing, which seems to be spanning that world between lighting and video and projection and media? I mean, there's some things in there that are truly interesting that Vari Lite's been working on a long time. Back 2 decades ago, they were looking at developing gobo keystoning. And this light has it. So now I can be off-axis, project my gobo on the side, and straighten that thing out so it's a front projection. It's not keystoned at all. This idea of, digital gobos or the gobo package that comes on board, the idea of the animation package behind it, this kind of relook at RGBL color mixing. I mean, people do like additive color mixing. It's kind of back in trend again right now. Seamlessly move that to CYM mixing if you want to. There's some interesting stuff going on in it. So, to be determined. To be determined.
You could do all that except for the color with the Icon M. To me, this is like it's been done before.
Similar.
But the Icon M wasn't in
it
the
wasn't.
LED
And the
era.
Icon M the Icon M was using a DMD
Right.
and a traditional light source. And what this is doing is every pixel looks like in the Hive that every pixel is individually controlled, and it is the light engine.
Right.
So it
is individually controlled, 151.
Right.
Also,
Right.
this thing is almost as bright as the 3600. I think the 3600 is 48,000
That's
lumens.
very bright.
The Hive is 45,000
Very bright,
lumens.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think Steve is right. It's something really to keep an eye on. I'm going to talk to Bobby about sending me one. So it might be a really great application for this project I'm doing in Hollywood, Florida, because they have the budget and they like to be fancy. And so I want to see it myself. I didn't get to see it at LDI, so I'm sure they can, when they're ready to start, promoting it.
I predict it's not going to happen next year. I predict that.
No?
Yeah, it's just a guess. I'm just guessing. We're doing predictions here, guys and gals.
Because we need predictions for next year at this time.
Why would they start teasing it now if they're going to make us wait another year?
Why? Because they needed something in that tiny little booth of theirs. They had nothing else. What else did they have? They have what? Oh yeah, we've got like the old VL 2000 here, and we're gonna, what else do they have but the Hive? I think it's great that they're doing this. Don't get me wrong.
You're just bitter.
I am bitter. I'm bitter because nobody let me into the booth. No one invited me. I looked over there and they said, I saw some flowers. I saw they have a light bulb too that they had. I saw a bulb. Yeah.
I didn't want to bring this up, and I did sign a
non-disclosure agreement, right?
But I think we need to admit it. At the Vari Lite booth, it was very important that they tell everyone at the convention about the Hive. Except you. They said, see David Jacques. Don't tell
they're going to pay for it, man. They're going to pay for it.
Those Lumen Brothers.
Close the black curtains, make them think we're not here.
Excluded.
This is going to be a spite. This is going to be a spite review right now. I don't think this thing's ever coming out. They're going to go out of business by March. So some other company like, McDonald's is going to buy them. Philips is going to sell Vari Lite to McDonald's, and then they're going to make little like lights for their Big Macs.
Where do you think? Okay, I have a more interesting question. Where do you think they got that? I was thinking about the name, and I thought about
Hive?
like
what's that all about? Beehive?
Yeah, I thought it was like a beehive, like all these individual
or like the eyes on the bee.
Cells
Yeah,
like the BI.
Right.
Sort of like that concept is what inspired the name, or the way they organized the technology, or I don't know where they come up.
It probably is somebody who was making $2 million a year to come up with names, and Philips, because
Right. Well, speaking of Hive, there was another
Yes.
Hive product at LDI.
That's right.
Which is a new media server that comes out of England and is run by Nigel Sadler, who was with Green Hippo for a long time. And this thing won the Projection and Digital Media Debuting Product Award at LDI. And it calls itself a lighter, greener, more flexible, and more affordable media control system, which apparently they have hardware, but it apparently also runs off of any web browser.
It's very inexpensive.
So I don't really know enough about it to go play with it, but everybody seemed to love it.
And I think that whoever in Vari Lite came up with the name Hive should have done a little more research to see if something else was going to be coming out with the same name.
Right, because there was this Hive
Or
already,
vice versa,
probably.
depending.
Well, it's like when people want to talk to everybody on the internet, they say, "Hey, Hive mind." What does that mean?
Well, it's like a bunch of creatures all together in one environment.
Oh, okay.
Like 151
Well,
of them
there you
all
go.
inside that light.
Right,
Okay,
there
let's
you go.
move on.
There you go.
Now, we talked about a lot of things. I actually went through every single episode last year, all 52 episodes, and read the descriptions. And I just threw out some things, some subjects that we talked about that were crazy. I mean, we talked a hell of a lot of about AI. We talked about the end of gels, over-promising, under-delivering. One of my favorite was how American MFA lighting programs are failing to prepare students, for the profession. And by the way, now there's a little thing. What is it? ERDA is coming up with their annual recruitment thing. And I think that any student that is going to ERDA or is looking for a grad program needs to listen to the program. I think it was like last week, episode 403 it was like 402 when we had all the guys from all the lighting designers from the opera companies on, Justin and everyone else. And they were talking about what they're looking for to hire for assistant lighting designers and parts of their staff, and how poorly American lighting universities are preparing lighting designers. So I think you all need to really listen to that before you choose one of these ERDA programs, or any program for that matter. We talked about the Paris Opening Olympics, which is awesome. Bill Klages, we had a tribute to Bill. We talked about tenure and professor of practice. Oh, it just went on and on. So guys and gal,
Brothers and sister.
what piqued your interest this year that we talked about?
For me, the top of I can't, maybe you'll just say it's me obsessing a little bit, but I think the AI thing is a big thing. I still do, and I'm involved in it. I'm using it. I think it is as hyped up as it all is. I mean, I bought Palantir stock at $17. It's up 360% this year. So something's going on. Like, this is real. And I like I said before, I'll just repeat it for the New Year show. I think I'm going to coin a phrase. We're entering the age of humility, that human beings are going to have to take a step down from thinking that we're the most intelligent things around. And I'll just say this: in the last couple of days, because I've been dealing with some health issues, and now I'm a subscriber to OpenAI on ChatGPT. There's a bot that has all the medical literature that's ever been written in its brain. And so when you search in there about a particular health issue, it's agglomerating and using all of that information. This is just still a huge thing. So I think it's going to continue to be a conversation, and I think we're going to see extraordinary developments in every field of life, from lighting.
I was just going to say, because if something is written on the web and it's not true, and ChatGPT and these other bots they scour the web for their information. They don't write it themselves. So some of it could be wrong.
So here's what the scary and good and bad is. So AI is one thing, and AGI is something else. So artificial general intelligence which they thought was going to take a lot longer, is going to be here by the end of next year. Now, the difference is that you're right, Ellen. Typical AI is just looking for patterns. It's what's out there. It's information. It's agglomerating it. It doesn't think like a human. Artificial general intelligence, here's the difference. It thinks like a human based on its experience. That's the difference. So we have an intelligence that relies on what we have experienced to come to conclusions. AI does not do that. AGI does. It thinks like a person. And they thought that was going to be years off. And that's why there's so much concern about regulation, because once you start to see artificial general intelligence, good and bad, I think is what the reading that I'm doing is saying. And that's coming faster than they thought.
And how will that affect the lighting industry?
Well, we can talk about a talk-to light board, and it's based on information you plugged into its large learning model, right? That's sort of like AI. But when you have AGI and it can actually think like the designer thinks, now we're really getting into something that's worthy of concern, perhaps, and that worry about, is it going to replace me? Because now it's thinking like a human.
We can't even afford a luster, And this idea that man's not the smartest thing anymore. I don't know about this. I agree with Ellen. We all of a sudden, we had that famous court case, I think it's been in the last year, in which the law firm built their whole case around a precedent that didn't exist. AI just made it up.
Right. Well, that's
because
AI.
That would be
that's
an
not
effective
AGI.
Argument. And the judge went, well, this doesn't really exist, does it?
That's right.
So the other thing is, maybe AI is coming along somewhere. I don't know if it's coming along for the entertainment industry in regards to lighting anytime soon. I think just the cost is prohibitive, and our industry is so small. We are the last people that developers are going to focus on.
Well, also the voice-controlled lighting console,
That's
who
not
talks
AG.
to?
That's a simple thing. That's like Siri for light boards. That's not artificial general intelligence. Let me give an example in electricity. So last week I got
You mean like Siri saying, go kill your parents? That Siri?
Okay, let me just give an example. So this is not lighting, but it's electricity, okay? So my insurance company asked me if I would like to get this thing called I'll give you the name in a minute, that you plug into your electrical system and it monitors a bunch of data. And then if it believes that you have an impending short or electrical fire risk, it's going to notify you. Now, it was free. So I said, okay, a gadget for free. I'll take it. I got it. I plugged it in. Now it spends 7 days monitoring my voltage and what they call a hi-fi on electrical circuits, which is basically noise. And once it learns your system and what's normal, and it will identify arcing, normal arcing. Like when you turn a light on and off, it arcs, right? But that's a safe arc. But then there are arcs that cause fires. I looked up this device. You can buy it for $100, but my insurance company gave it to me for free because I think what they're thinking is if you put this thing in your house, you're going to reduce the amount of electrical fires because it's going to learn what's normal for your system and it's going to monitor it for you. Now, that's a use. I don't know if that's AGI. That's sort of normal AI. But this is that whole thing we talked about 5 years ago about the Internet of Things, right, which is now coming. So I don't know. I'm just sharing that because that's not, I don't think the artist ever really gets replaced, but I think things are going to change.
I'd like to see us just make a color picker that works. Let's start something simple.
Yes.
Something simple. Let's just match. Let's match color
That's
across
a
3
complicated
different
problem.
manufacturers.
Agreed. Yeah, it's a very complicated problem.
Or create create an LED light that actually has a normal curve that doesn't go from 0 to like 80% between 0 and 25%. I mean, that's amazing.
You want it to behave. You want it to behave like tungsten.
I want to know. I want to know that when my light's at 80%, it still has 20 more percent to go.
We had a question at LDI that we haven't gotten to yet, and that question, I'm going to take it seriously, was do you think there's going to be a revolution and the entertainment industry is going to demand that tungsten is a supplement to LED?
No.
David talks about this every now and then, that he uses a little tungsten to activate skin tones on stage.
Yeah, but those are like 12 lights out of 200.
A lot of the lighting industry is based on commerce, and we like to think of it as art and how people look, but ultimately it's commerce. And I think if there's a market for it, people will make it. And if there's no market for it, people won't.
It's all about the money.
Yeah, I'm sorry to say, but it's definitely a piece of that. We're not even lighting real candles for Hanukkah over at my house. We have little. You should see my menorah.
LED. You have an LED menorah.
No, we actually have a really cool menorah. It is actually pieces of plastic acrylic, and then the top where the candle flame would be is sort of twisted and sanded. And there's one little incandescent bulb and a little shutter, and you pull it down, and it lets the light out, and it travels up the clear part of the acrylic, and then it glows at the top. I'll send you a picture. It's a really cool menorah, but it's not fire. And fires. Let's put it this way. Let's ask this question. We got electric light in the theater because it was safer, historically, right? Because gas and candles were not safe.
Theaters are burning down every week.
That's correct. And so we got electric, which was safer. So let me throw this on the table for the group. Which is safer? Dimmers and tungsten and gels or LEDs?
LEDs.
All right. Anything else from last year that we talked about?
Because if it's safer, it's going to stay.
One of the other things we talked about, we're talking about AI, was legal protection for AI-assisted designs, which is also a very interesting subject. And Bob Boniol, I know, has a lot to say about it.
There was a lawyer at LDI for the past 2 years, and maybe he'd make an interesting guest.
Yes.
Who specializes in AI intellectual property protection.
Right. I would love to talk to him.
It is a really big thing. Any intellectual property protection, whether it's AI or not, is like if you rent a media server and David left his images from his rock and roll band in there and Stan decides to use them because they're in the machine, that's not legal either.
Well, the union would protect David's.
Well, would it?
Wouldn't it?
I don't know.
Because, I have a friend who did the media for Jersey Boys. Whenever they remount Jersey Boys, they have to get his permission.
Oh yeah.
And the union
but
will
I think what
defend
Ellen's talking about is something
content.
totally different. It's not an actual remount of a show using a different designer and the original designer's
Right. It's like
images.
you leave your stuff in the machine by mistake, or you just never don't empty it out, and then somebody else gets it and decides to use it.
Right. Exactly.
just
That's what we're talking about.
Well, what about if you just, if you just, I just had someone I know did a adaptation of an Ibsen play. And I went, oh, I didn't realize you spoke Norwegian. And she said, oh, I didn't. I put it into ChatGTP and it translated it for me. So the question is, she's putting her name on the project. It's her translation. It's not her translation.
Well,
it's ChatGPT's
Well, I have a question to
translation.
ask you. Did she go back and fix it, rewrite it?
How much? So the next question is, circling back, I think, to where we were talking, how much do you have to do before it is your work? So I go to my magical console and I say, okay, we're going to light Oklahoma. I need a sunrise. Oh, yeah, I like that. It may look like shit, but I go, I like that. All right, now I need a sunset. Now I need a happy look. Now I need a sad look. And I just let the machine do it all. What right do I have to put my name on that? Well, let's assume it.
Well, did you tweak
let's assume
it, or
it's
did you
good.
accept?
Well, how much do I have to tweak? Do I need to tweak 50%
Good
of it or
question.
30% of it before it is?
How do you even measure
Exactly.
This is the same question
Yeah,
that they've been talking about for decades in the music industry. When an artist takes another artist's work and they
Sure.
basically sample it and then they tweak it just a little bit, maybe they change the words and they get away with it because, let's face it, there are only so many melodies out there, and a jury doesn't know really how to dissect it. And then they have music experts come in to talk about it as witnesses. And still, Led Zeppelin gets away with ripping off like 12 of their biggest hits, from other artists. So,
well, how many progressive chords are there?
Right.
well,
That's the point.
I mean, but still, the melody is sort of fitting in with the same chords and all that. So this is going to be the same thing. It's going to be the same battle, which is what we want to talk about with this intellectual property lawyer. I mean, these are things that really interest me, and I would love to do that. Just to get more information.
I'll see
about
if we
it.
can line him up.
That would be
it's
awesome.
interesting though because 30 years ago they already said that Andrew Lloyd Webber was stealing from Puccini. So it's been a long time, AI or not.
Well, yeah, that's really pressing it.
But, the thing about translation is really interesting because translation used to be a really fine art. A lot of people who speak a language think they speak two languages, but they're not writers. So they think they can translate. So they translate from some other language into their native tongue, which is the only kind of translation I subscribe to. I don't think you should translate into any other language than your native one. But they're not really writers. So it's awkward and, it doesn't really flow right and whatever. So there are some really good translations and a lot of magazines and websites and stuff that I have worked for and other people have worked for getting paid to be a translator now use either ChatGPT or another one called DeepL. And there are still a lot of mistakes. So when you go back into it and sort of help it along, is it your work? Is it not your work? I guess that's the real question. Because in French, it's interesting because there's the masculine and feminine, which does not exist in the United States. So in French, a house would have its roof, but it would be her or his roof or his or her terrace or his or her garage. And when they translate it that way into English, you have to go fix every one of them back to its. So is it AI generated, fixed by, Stan K, or is it something else? It's a really wide field. In terms of replacing people, every time there's a disruptive technology, they say it's going to replace people. And so far, there's still designers, there's still programmers, there's still production electricians, there's still follow spot operators.
Yeah, I read a historical view on that, particularly around agriculture, about that when agriculture became industrialized, you'd have less people working in agriculture. And we actually do have less people working in agriculture than we did 100 years ago. But it did say the conclusion of the long-term study of that concept was that new jobs are created in different fields, and those people, some of them lose their jobs for sure, but ultimately it's not a net loss, right? There's usually a net gain. That you don't have an unemployment, although people are now projecting that, given what's coming, it was already happening, that we might need what do they call it, a universal basic income. Because the amount of workers, we may not need the same number of workers, but that's, that hasn't happened yet, right? But
I think also what happens is every time, like Pat McKay always used to say, you wouldn't want to be the last buggy whip maker, but maybe you would because there's only one and you get all the business that exists. But people that used to be buggy whip makers now work in IT. So as one kind of thing goes away, something else kind of comes along. One of the most interesting things of the year, and I wish we knew more about it technology-wise, was the Olympics, the Paris opening ceremonies, which I think sort of exploded the whole concept of having to do it in a stadium or an arena out into the street and the river and rooftops and buildings. And they sort of encapsulated French history. as they went along. And I think one of the really interesting things will be to see what Los Angeles does as the home of theme parks, television, film, Hollywood. What are they going to do when it's their turn in a couple of years?
Yes, I agree, Ellen. It's going to be interesting. Being here in a front row seat, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to rent my house out for some ridiculous amount of money and move up and go up to Vancouver. By the way, Lori and I were in Cancun last week. We met a lot of Canadians. I think we made a deal with this person to actually marry us so that we can become Canadian citizens. So I may be in Vancouver by then. We'll see.
Oh, I thought you were going to become Mormons.
Vancouver? No, that's Utah.
Hey, I heard there's a commercial coming up.
You are listening to Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers and sister. And Light Talk this week, the New Year's Eve special, is sponsored by
MAGA the Musical. Are you tired of the same old schlock that you are seeing on Broadway? I mean, how many times are we going to be tortured by sappy revivals and ancient Broadway shows? Or worse, another movie turned into a musical. Kick, kick, turn, turn, kick, turn. It just makes me want to puke. Well, as depressing as 2024 was, there is now 2025. And with the new year comes new hope. That's right. There is a new light coming to not only Broadway, but to America. Coming to you straight from the theatrical capital of the USA, the Mar-a-Lago Playhouse in Palm Beach, Florida, comes the new Broadway musical hit, MAGA the Musical. MAGA the Musical brings back good old-fashioned Aryan entertainment to Broadway, or as we prefer to call it, the Great White Way. We know what you're thinking. Didn't the producers cover this when the American people embraced Judeo-Christian values and morals? Well, the election of 2024 pretty much flushed morality down the toilet. MAGA the Musical brings good, non-woke, 1950s family-oriented entertainment, up to date with such songs as If I Loved You. Oh, by the way, how old are you? Sung by Matt Gaetz. The Beast with the Fringe on Top, sung by Stormy Daniels. Memories, They're Eating the Cats, sung by Joe Biden's dog Commander. If I Were a Rich Man, sung by Elon Musk. Springtime for Trump, sung by the entire White House cabinet. Climb Every Mountain, sung by the January 6th Convict Chorus. Have a Little Democrat, sung by Roadkill Epicurean RFK Jr. in drag. Hello Melania, sung by Melania Trump. The Circle of Morons, sung by the Republican and Democratic parties. Got No Future, sung by the Biden administration cabinet. And There's No Business Like Con Business, sung by Donald Trump. And we are pleased to announce that this production will be the first Broadway musical produced with non-union shops and crews. That's right, we cut safety and expenses by 50%, and we'll pass those savings on to our billionaire general partners. No, your ticket prices will not go down, but you won't care as long as we lie to you. And don't worry, there are plenty of seats for everyone, because we're closing Wicked and are taking over the Gershwin Theater. So buy your tickets now for opening night, January 20th, 2025. You'll be whistling songs from MAGA the Musical all the way home, if you make it there alive after riding the New York City subway.
The work you just heard is a parody and is intended for comedic purposes only. The work does not intend to defame or harm any individual's reputation. We encourage listeners to enjoy the content in the spirit of humor and satire. So, don't sue the Lumen Brothers and Sisters. They have no money left in their retirement accounts and can barely afford maintaining their windmills.
That's very funny, David.
And now, back to Light Talk.
I love the songs, and that's funny.
Very funny, very funny,
Very
David.
funny. That was funny.
You could have I'm Gonna Wash That Man Right Out of My Hair by E. Jean Carroll.
Oh.
That's good. That's good.
I like that. I like that.
She's swinging for the fence. I like that one.
Yeah.
Well, New Year's predictions. All right. So, what about New Year's predictions? What's our lighting world going to be like now for the next 12 months, 2025? Don't be shy. Predict.
The hell if I know.
I predict the Great Plateau.
The Great Plateau of what? Of design?
I don't think we see a lot of really, really new stuff. I predict a year of status quo-ness.
I'll see your status quo-ness.
What they're opening?
I'll see your status quo-ness, and I will predict a under $1,000 LED Lico next year.
That would be good.
Coming from the Pacific Rim.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Well, you know what's going on Broadway right now? Gypsy. So I kind of go with the status quo.
But I would like to predict that the industry will finally pay more attention to going green, to the environment, and using solar batteries for more productions, like Richard Cadena and Neil Vasavada have been doing.
Let's hope so. But I don't know if that's going to happen on Broadway. I think that's all going to be, on the very exterior sort of thing.
There was an interesting article today projecting what if Reagan had not taken Jimmy Carter's solar hot water panels off the White House, and we had actually followed his lead over the last 30 years, we would be the leaders in solar production in terms of panels, materials, and technology, as opposed to China, and now we're playing catch up.
Right, and it would have driven prices down.
That's right.
Yeah, but all those oil executives will be poor right now. So
right.
That's not.
But it's interesting because the billionaires who are going to run the government now are not oil men.
No,
they're different technology men. So things might change.
People. Yeah.
Yep.
But things aren't getting cheaper. This is the thing. This is the great fallacy.
Well, you need the materials. Who's got the materials and the infrastructure to build it? And unfortunately, it isn't us.
Right. Well, that's the big, the big question this week about the MAGA party splitting into two factions, the MAGA party and the MAGA Doge party, because the MAGA people that think that Trump is going to get rid of every immigrant, no matter what level of society they're in. And Elon Musk, who was all of a sudden come out and said, no, the H-1 visa program is not going away. We need those people.
And even Trump said, no, I'm not doing that. I think that's a lot more bark than bite. It's going to be illegal people is going to be one thing. They're going to have to find the balance.
Right. But it is true. And, these people who are saying that, I don't know if it was who said this week that American... Oh, maybe it was that Ramaswamy, whatever his name is.
Ramaswamy. That's Elon's child, by the way. Did you know that? That's his bastard baby.
No.
He looks like Ramaswamy. He's like a little child next to Elon.
Well, yes,
and he just hangs on
I think
to
he
Elon
came out
like
and
a
said
little,
that the reason that you need all these Indian workers is that they're, in the high tech industry, is that they're well educated and cultured, and America has, put the emphasis on football and jocks and cheerleaders.
And we don't have enough. He's right. We don't have enough of those people. That's what they're saying.
That's right.
Well, nerds get beat up on, in school. They're afraid to answer questions, so they're afraid to be smart.
We are a generation behind.
Right.
Because if you see these kids that are going to school now, not all of them, there are exceptions, but in the American school system is awful. It is just shameful for in the 21st century that kids are not being educated. And this is the problem. And in Asia, they're being educated because it's all very strict and it's all science, math, blah, 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 all that stuff. So, we're more concerned with, whether we're saying and doing the right things than, actually helping the students survive in the world.
Yeah, and America, I think, has really led people down the garden path because not only do people not save money, they spend way too much. They spend way more than they earn. And the amount of credit card debt, and when you tell French people that like the average credit card debt in the United States is like $40, $50, $60, $70, $80,000 per family, they look at you like you are a Martian because they only have debit cards and you get 1 month grace. It's it. At the end of the month, they take that money out of your account. And if you don't have it, they stop your card. So nobody in France has credit card debt unless they have an American credit card for some reason.
Well, that's France.
So it's just a whole different way of looking at everything. In France, frankly, if you can't afford it, you don't buy it.
Right. That's natural.
My favorite thing about France was a few years ago, I was in a cab and the driver looked at me and he said, I have to ask you, is it true that Americans eat food in their cars? I said, yeah, yes. And he could not
Yes.
believe
Cats
that.
and dogs.
Yes.
Because why would you want to spend so much money on a car and spill ketchup in it?
Right.
That's right.
Right. And then you have to go get it detailed. But when I lived in France in the 80s, they, other than like getting maybe roasted chestnuts in the winter on a street in Paris or a crepe from a street vendor, people don't eat on the streets in France either. Maybe now they do.
Oh, I don't
but
know.
in those days, they didn't even have McDonald's.
They look at you kind of strangely.
So I don't know, but I mean, not that eating on the street is a problem, but the thing about, needing all these tech workers and the idea of getting rid of those visas and replacing those people with Americans is kind of hard to imagine because it's very specific work that.
That's not going to happen. They're not
Well,
gonna,
I'm going to go out on a
program's-
limb here and say that people in Manhattan look at you oddly if you're walking down the street chewing on a hot dog. They may not be.
Oh, no, everybody in New York. No. Everybody in New York eats in the street. Everybody.
Pizza,
That
come
is
on.
disgusting.
You slice
Pizza,
Frankfurters.
hot soft pretzels, ice
A Cornish
cream.
with mustard.
a bowl of
Right.
spaghetti.
Oh, no, I
some
think
cereal.
New Yorkers are the best noshers.
Hey, listen,
You
I
know,
got to
walk
move
and
us on. I
nosh.
got to move us on to New Year's resolutions.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Who's first?
So Stan, start.
Oh,
What's your
me?
resolution for New Year's? Yeah, sure. Why not?
Homeostasis. Look it up.
That means being in
Homeostasis.
one
I don't
spot.
want
Not
anything
moving.
to change. I want to get into this healthy mode. Homeostasis means that everything in your body is operating in balance as it should. I want to achieve homeostasis and stay there. That's it.
I have bad news for you. You're too old for that.
Shut up.
That's right. Your
up.
body's falling apart, buddy,
Sister
just like the
Ellen.
rest of ours.
Sister Ellen, shush kebab. Shush, shush, shush.
The next time you're sitting on your bidet, you could be saying homeostasis.
I just want to stay.
Homeostasis.
I want to stay flat and even. I don't want any changes. I don't want to get any
There's
worse.
gonna be
I don't want
lots
to
of
get
changes,
any better.
buddy.
I just want to stay right here in this zone. God willing.
Okay, that's your resolution. You have no choice on this, I'm afraid. So go ahead. So Ellen, what's your resolution of the for
Oh,
the new
dear.
year?
I don't know. Is this personal or industry or what is
Hey, whatever
this?
you want. No, resolution is personal. Yeah, it's personal, I think.
Well, I mean, here I am. I'm going to be some major age on January 12th. And I just want to get through another year and another few LDIs. And, I figure if Richard Pilbrow could work until he was 90, I could work until I'm 80. So I'll have 5 more years to go.
All I can tell you, Ellen, is that your work at LDI is just sublime. And
thank
to
you.
pull that off and to have all those educational opportunities for all those incredible students.
Well, I do have
It's
to
just
say
amazing.
that for the past 2 years, I've had an incredible partner in crime, which is Jesse Cybulski, who is the show director, who really has taken a massive interest in this. And what's really great about it was I used to feel like I was like this lone tree in the forest and that everything else at LDI really, focused on the show floor. And Jesse is sort of the first show director in the 36 years of LDI that's really taken a huge interest in what we're doing. And the fact that she has her finger on the budget is really great because if we decide to do something, she can do it. So it really, it helps move the process along a lot more smoothly. So that, and also I think they're afraid that I will either retire or keel over and that somebody needed to know how to do what I'm doing. And Jesse, as Pat McKay says, if you have to pass the torch, it's great to have someone young and really smart to pass it to.
I was going to say, I want to echo what David said about what you put together every year. It is quite a legacy. And are you developing? Sounds like you are developing a secession plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jessie is great. And she definitely will be poised to take over in another couple of years if I ever decide to really retire or die on the job.
Don't die on the job. That's no way to go.
No, she's great. And another thing that we've been doing intentionally is bringing in a lot of really young people. Like, I don't know if any of you wandered over to the audio stage on the show floor this year, but you all know him because, no, I don't think we had him on our show. There's a guy called Jordan Gilliam who runs a thing out of Pittsburgh called Tech 25. And it's a workforce program, which is, okay, these kids can't afford to go to school, and these kids need to get a job out of high school. And what kind of jobs are there out there, and how can we get them into the industry? And he comes at it. He's got a whole team of people doing this. And they ran this free audio training program for us this year, and it was great. So bringing in people like that. And then we've got our Young Career Professionals program, which is now in its 4th or 5th year. And there's like 100 of them who sign up, 18 to 25. And, that's how we sort of have moved people along over the years from being interns, which we now call production assistants. And then they become, Bill Dignight, and they become Jake Pinholster, and they become Ben Saltzman. And we have an incredible track record. And so some of our young career professionals are like, oh, well, I'd like to really step up next year and sort of help the next group of young career professionals coming in. So we're trying to sort of, curate the future, as it were, with a lot of people who are, becoming the LDI family. It's great.
What's so clear about that is how LDI grows every year. And I think what happens is you guys listen to people, whether they have good ideas or bad ideas. You sit there calmly and listen to them. But I look at the what's changed over the years. The educational program has changed. Student involvement has changed. Heck, we have our own circle bar now. We have Battle of the Busk. It's right. I've never heard you say anything weird like, well, when I started this, or back in the day. Back in the day is not in your vocabulary. It's what's happening next year.
No.
How can we grow this as opposed to become a museum piece? So,
right. No, you're right. And we're always looking for ways to grow the show, and we're always looking for new audiences to bring in. And, AI is certainly going to be an exciting thing. And Pat McKay and I used to talk about years ago about like a virtual reality midway, where you would have all of these like industry virtual reality things, and you could walk and put on that virtual reality headset. So maybe that's going to be a reality now with the Apple headsets. Who knows? We talk a lot about doing like a, to steal the name of another show, like a Cinegear backlot, like a Hollywood production backlot, and bring in more aspects, not just the lighting, but more aspects of television and film production. Certainly XR.
I think the thing about LDI is I don't think the average person who comes to LDI realizes how smoothly it goes. Mm-hmm. That could be a wasteland of chaos. It's a massive undertaking. And it just moves slowly. Or not slowly, but
Well, you do
smoothly.
realize that there's a massive staff.
Absolutely.
You know me, but there is a massive staff of people.
Well, they're clearly doing their jobs.
A model for efficiency.
Job.
You could be in the Doge cabinet.
The Doge.
Well, a lot
you may
of
be
them,
working for Elon Musk and
a lot
Ramaswamy.
of these people, a lot of them work for Questex, which is the company that owns LDI now, and they are very vertical. They do 18 shows over the course of the year, and pretty much like one does signage, one does food and beverage, but they know exactly what they're doing because they do it weekly, practically, for some show or other. So it's different than in the old days when 5 of us did everything. But when the show is that way, I think it's the best way to deal with it.
So, Steve, what's your resolution for next year?
My resolution is to respond faster when a student looks at me and says, "What'd you think?" If I take too long to answer that question, I can see the sweat popping out of their forehead.
Good.
So what do you think?
Poor kids.
So I will answer in 15 seconds or less.
Wow.
Okay, I have the perfect answer because I actually solved this problem many years ago. Is when a student asks me that question and I don't have an immediate answer, I say, "It's interesting."
Interesting, right.
Come see me tomorrow.
Come see me tomorrow and bring your grade book with you. Okay. Okay, so it's my turn. So I'm going to be sappy here. I'm going to be extremely go back to our Thanksgiving show if we had one. Thankful that I'm with my family today, and you guys are great, and it's been an amazing time. And I'm just going to resolve that we can keep this going. You know, we're reaching like 500,000 downloads. I mean, we have 500,000 downloads out there, and that's a lot of people are listening to us. And I think I'm proud of what you guys do, all of you, and all of the family, and you know, it's really a beautiful thing. And I'm going to continue playing music because that's been my real now artistic release. And and I've met a lot of great people there. You know, the people I play with are not only great musicians, but they're great people. And it's been a great, wonderful time for us. So I'm just going to try to be better and better and better. Okay. Believe me, I have a long way to go, but I'd just like to see that, right? So.
Well, speaking of succession plans, we should probably eventually have one for Light Talk.
That's
Someday
right.
There'll
And,
be
you know, we actually mentioned
20-somethings doing this, you know?
That's right.
Well, you know, we actually mentioned this at the LDI show about having more young people on the show. And
We need to take the Johnny Carson model,
thing.
have guest hosts, and let them audition.
Yeah, well, you got to find people who are interested in doing it, you know, and people who actually, you know, I mean, a lot of people listen to us and say, well, they're a bunch of hacks, you know, and they can do it. But it's actually not easy to do this.
It's chemistry.
Well, not only are you guys great at it, and you have an incredible chemistry, the three of you, but the fact that you have been able really to keep it up for 8 years is quite amazing.
I have a hard time keeping it up for 8 minutes. 8 years is a tough time. All right, so let's close out the show today. So thanks again for to our listeners, thanks again for spending this New Year's with us, the Lumen family. The best way that I could sum up the year is to once again quote my favorite humorist, Dave Barry. In his yearly wrap-up of the year, he said, "Clearly, this year needs to end," which is why we're looking forward to New Year's Eve tonight, when, in a beloved tradition, thousands of revelers will gather in Times Square to say goodbye to 2024 and welcome to 2025. We like to think that on that night, as the seconds tick down to zero and that giant ball starts to descend, the people gazing up at it will all be united, if only for a moment, by a common hope. A hope shared by millions of us watching on television, specifically that the giant ball was not manufactured by Boeing. Also, while we're hoping, let's hope that 2025 will be a better year. How could it be worse? Try not to think about it. So that's right, Dave. So it's time to welcome in 2025. I will quote from one of my favorite actors, Betty Davis, when she said, "Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night." Happy New Year's, everyone. Happy New Year. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tell us that once again you've spent another New Year's Eve listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
If you decide to litigate us next year or this year, the Snook Group, with a legal team of Watson, Leitner, and Beam, will defend us until our already depleted retirement funds are completely depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers and Sister, coming to you from St. Bart's, Long Beach, Gainesville, and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to join us next year when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
Happy
Happy
New
New
Year.
Year.